In a world where power is decided at birth, he rolled the worst possible stats. No mana, no talent, just dungeon runs to pay for his sister's hospital bills. When desperation pushes him into a forbidden dungeon, something breaks the rules. He gains an eye that lets him see what no one else can. Stats, truth, potential hidden from the entire world. That's how Born Low Tier discovered admin vision. Let's go. The story begins with MC running quickly through a dark cave, breathing heavily from fatigue. He found himself in a dead end, and because of this, the monsters that were chasing him caught up with him. He turned to them and loudly begged the goblins not to come near him. He had nowhere to run, and he began to loudly call for help as the monsters came closer and closer. Several people came to him, easily killed the monsters, and said that they should stop bullying him. He called for help so pitifully. They should stop torturing him. His conscience will torment him because of it. After all, Amachikai has a magic level of only 5, which is too low even for rank E. He is a miserable unranked person. He did not respond to this, poured tea into a cup and said that he was very grateful to them for their help. They must want to drink, right? Here is tea for them. A guy named Sato used magic to take the cup from him and said he was quite smart. A trash like him can only grovel before others and entertain them. 20 years ago, when cubes began to descend from the heavens all over the world, they received God's gift, magic, and humanity awakened. However, God is too cruel because he gave everyone equal abilities. On the contrary, he gave birth to unranked people with low magic and high-ranked people like them. They, the strong, can sell these magic stones and easily make good money. Doesn't he think he would do more for this world if he took some miserable office job? He really is pathetic, and everyone wants to earn a lot of money. He is not alone, a worm without magic, because he has a younger sister who is also powerless. He was very angry about this, but he immediately kicked him in the face and told him that he cannot look at him with his ugly eyes. If he still has time, he should try collecting the stones again. The protagonist thought about the mystical cubes that suddenly appeared 20 years ago. Inside them, worlds teeming with monsters were hidden, which became known as dungeons. The strength of the monsters appearing in dungeons depends on the cube's level. Cubes range from E to S. They are high-ranking, but they ended up in one of the weakest cubes, E rank. After that, they emerged from this cube together, and he thought that the world had changed dramatically after the cubes appeared. The Dungeon Association, which formally deals with cubes, was founded by a guild that had previously conquered dungeons. This marked the beginning of the story of adventurers capable of using magic and technology containing magic stones. It was like being in the game world, but as NPCs. Sato handed him some bills and said that this was his share. He thanked him, but immediately afterward, he let go, and the bills began to fall to the ground. He started to trample his money with his foot and asked, "It's hard to control magic when there's a lot of it, right?" He left with the other adventurers, and MC started picking up money from the floor. Later, he went home and thought that even if God exists, not everyone was blessed by him. He entered the house and was immediately greeted by his sister, Nagi. He said that she should lie in bed and rest. She refused and said that she was much better. He should see how she can do. Her legs gave way, she started to fall, and he caught her and asked, "Is she okay?" She shouldn't overdo it. She laughed and thanked him. He saw something on her shoulder and thought that magical exhaustion syndrome was a disease that this same damned god gave to people. With the advent of the cubes, humanity awakened and gained magical power. Those with a lot of magic gained various abilities and supernatural physical capabilities. However, people with low levels of magic have no abilities, and their magic is expended even on simple bodily movements. Those suffering from this disease possess magic that should normally regenerate itself, but it is absorbed by parasitic magic stones on their bodies. Unable to replenish the magic needed for movement, they eventually find themselves unable to move even a finger. Until a cure is found, the only option is to rely on blood transfusions to replenish lost magic. However, due to the rapidly growing number of patients, treatment has become extremely expensive. A worldwide competition for donor blood for these transfusions has begun. She noticed a scratch on his arm, called him over, and said that he was injured. They should treat the wounds. Let her see. He said it was nothing serious. It would heal on its own. She, with a frighteningly serious expression, said that he should let her see. Nagi began to apply ointment to his wounds and said that he was covered in wounds. Kai said that these were honorary trophies received for her joy. She thanked him, and he said that they should eat. Today he would cook the ransom fish. Then they cooked the food, and she said that it was so delicious. He laughed and said that she should enjoy it, but chew it more thoroughly. She extended a spoon to him and said that he should also eat well. He was touched by this, but suddenly her hand began to shake and she dropped the spoon. She apologized for this, but he ate the dropped food and said with a smile that it was very tasty. After that, she went to bed, and he thought that he should try harder. There is no other way. The disease is still being studied. One day they will truly understand how to treat it, but until then, only money can alleviate her symptoms. For the sake of his deceased parents, he will protect her. The next day, Sato said he was fired. The protagonist was shocked by this and asked what he just said. He smirked and asked if he had gone deaf. He denied it and asked why he was fired. He asked, Did this mean he suddenly became dumber? A genius like him can't stay at such a low level. It wouldn't be very nice to strive for more, but have a no-ranker on the team. He was very worried about this, loudly asked to wait, and said that he would do whatever it took. He would work twice as hard as before. He said with a smirk that unfortunately that was also unnecessary. Instead of some weakling like him, it would be much more useful for future conquests to team up with someone strong. He no longer needed to go to cubes. He should do some worthless work. He grabbed him by the shoulders and loudly said that this couldn't be. He needed money for his sister. He pushed him away and loudly said that he didn't care. Whether he dies in the dungeon or from hunger makes little difference. If he understood everything, he must leave. After some time, the MC came to the other adventurers, apologized, and asked if he could go with them to the dungeon. The adventurer asked what rank he was. He took his card, read it, gave it to him, apologized, and said that however, he should look for someone else. After that, he came to the adventurer's establishment and said that he was looking for a team that was currently recruiting. The employee looked at his documents, apologized, and said that however, his rank was too low. Finding a team would be problematic. He said in a worried tone that he would do everything necessary, even if he had to carry someone else's equipment. She bowed and said that she was very sorry. After that, he returned home and Nagi greeted him. She hugged him and asked, did his work end so early today? He pretended everything was fine, agreed with a happy expression, and said that thanks to his efforts, they cleared the dungeon in no time. The next day, the adventurer kicked him and loudly said that he should stop being annoying. They don't need an unranked person. The employee of the establishment said that she was very sorry. There were no suitable teams yet. Many different people said that he should do something else. They don't need him. Hiding behind other people's backs while they do all the work, he's a parasite. He's in the way. They don't need an unranked person. She's sorry, but there are no suitable teams. He's useless, unwanted, and pathetic. When Kai returned home, Nagi noticed that he was depressed and asked, he's looking for a job, right? He agreed, and she said that he works late every day. Why doesn't he take it easy for one day? Maybe they can play board games? He couldn't take it anymore and loudly said that she should just go to bed already. Who does she think he's doing all this for? If she's worried, she should just leave him alone and rest. She apologized and reached out to him, but he started to walk away and said she should just go to bed and rest. After that, he came back to the office, and the employee said she was sorry, but there were no recruitments today either. He went outside and, looking tired, thought that 3 weeks had flown by without him making any progress. Maybe he should give up and find a normal job? No, the salary is too low. Only the money from the cubes can cover Nagi's treatment. He looked to the side, saw a bakery, walked up and said that he wanted to buy 2 pies. He looked in his wallet and asked for only 1 pie. He returned home, called his sister and said that he bought her favorite strawberry pie. He noticed that it was too quiet, entered the room and noticed that she was lying on the floor. He was very worried about this, called an ambulance and loudly explained the situation. An ambulance arrived and she was taken to the hospital while doctors restrained a very worried protagonist. After that, he arrived at this hospital and waited for the doctor to finish the operation. He ran up to him and asked in a worried tone what was wrong with his sister. He asked him to calm down, listened to him and said that her condition had worsened. She was in stage 3 of the disease. In other words, she would not wake up again. He couldn't believe it and asked, is there really nothing that can be done about it? The doctor said there was an option to keep her alive until a cure was found. As far as he knew, there was a shortage of blood transfusions, so her treatment would be very expensive. In addition, it was unknown when a cure would be found, and it would most likely be very expensive. The approximate cost was 10 million yen. He entered his sister's room, sat down next to her on a chair, and wondered why he was so cruel. First, he took their parents away from them and forced them to go through all this ordeal. But now he wanted to take away his only sister? On the news, the anchor said that an emergency alert had been issued. A few minutes ago, the first golden cube appeared on Shibuya Street. The Dungeon Association is assembling a team to clear the golden cube and is offering 5 million for participation and another 5 million for each person for the clearing itself. Now, the president of the organization, Ryuenji Kagatora, is speaking. He said that regarding the golden cube that appeared today, the Dungeon Association has decided to form a special clearing team. There are no demands, only one thing is needed, their participation. A wish? To all the brave people who hear it, he is waiting for them. MC laughed and said that it seemed like God had extended a helping hand to him. A mysterious cube, previously unknown to anyone. In the worst case, his chance of survival is even lower than 50%. Even if he goes for it, there is no guarantee that he will return. However, 5 million just for participating, and a whole 10 million for the cleanup. He plucked up his resolve, got up from his chair, and thought that this was just great. No matter what inexplicable things might happen to him, he will fight and get this 10 million. He will come back to tell Nagi when she wakes up. He will try for her and save her. 72 people with different goals. The sudden appearance of a golden cube, be it wealth, honor, or the heart of a scientist, will unite in this cube to wipe it off the face of the earth. However, from now on, the news will only honor 2 names, and they will be the names of the survivors. He came to the association building, and the girl said that the registration for the vanguard for the golden cube is here. They also distribute food. They should let them know if anything is needed. The news anchor said that they should look into it, so many young adventurers want to enter the Golden Cube. Sato noticed him and said with a smirk that they should see who came here. They approached him and he said that they hadn't seen each other for a long time. How is he doing? Has he already found a new owner to live off of? In any case, they are going to clean out the Golden Cube that appeared today. They are busy people, so with this they will say goodbye. Kai, with a serious expression, said that he was also going to the Golden Cube. He was indignant about this, walked up to him and punched him in the stomach, causing him to fall to the ground. He said that he, a parasite, wants to do nothing and get a lot of money. A filthy insect like him should just die. He was about to use magic, but stopped when the girl loudly said that he should stop. Illegal use of skills for offensive purposes is prohibited. They should retreat now. His team member explained who she was. They started to leave. Sato called him an idiot and said that he wished him luck in playing the role of cannon fodder. The girl extended her hand to the protagonist and asked if he was okay. He took her hand and thanked her for it. She asked if he was also heading to the Golden Cube. He agreed and asked what about her. She refused and said that she couldn't fight. A guy came to them who called her Aya and said that so she was here. She was going to go to him and said that they would say goodbye. He looked at them and thought that she couldn't fight. Is she also unranked? He is a strange, unranked person who is going to the most dangerous dungeon. This sounds like an unfunny joke. Even so, he has a goal, a motivation. After that, the man standing on the podium in front of the adventurers said loudly that he thanked them very much for voluntarily choosing to enter the unknown cube, risking their lives. He is Tanaka Ise, vice captain of the Avalon Guild. He will be commanding the vanguard today. The adventurers standing in front of him asked loudly in a surprised tone, Avalon, the Japanese top guild, and also the vice captain. Are those two really behind you? Are they American soldiers? This will be the easiest money of his life. He said that they had gathered here in a hurry, but they had a common goal, to clear the cube. They must cover each other and work harmoniously. They must fight and return alive. The vanguard is heading into battle. At the same time, two people were sitting in the office next to him and asked, is he sure they don't need to go? Exactly, because the main goal is not to clear the cube, so they have no business there. Everything will be as he says. If the believer sent can handle it, then so much the better. However, this golden cube is unnerving him. This is what they are called now, an unusual box. Or is it a precious box? At the same time, all the members of the vanguard entered the room and Issei asked, is this the golden cube? The adventurers began to look around and asked, are they already inside? They had never seen such locations in cubes. He also looked around, did not see an entrance or exit, and loudly said that there must be some kind of mechanism here. They need to carefully search everything here. The adventurers approached one wall and asked, this is a fresco, isn't it? Maybe there is some kind of code needed here? MC began to examine it and thought that in the first fresco, monsters are fighting people. In the second, a knight and an angel, an oath of allegiance, dedication. The third is destroyed, nothing can be seen. Is there an angel and a cube drawn above them? The eye on the third fresco, he had definitely seen it somewhere. Issei approached it and asked, this is the Eye of Providence, the all-seeing eye, right? Why are these frescoes here and what is their purpose? He thought it was a hint. Suddenly, an unknown voice said that the first trial had begun, a trial of strength. Everyone suddenly felt sick from the loud sound and the countdown began. He loudly said that they all needed to calm down. They needed to split into pairs and find a stable position. The adventurers stood with their backs to each other, waiting for the countdown to end, and the girl asked, what is this? He said that he didn't know. They should be ready. Kai, with a tense expression, wondered what this all even meant. The unknown voice said the first trial, the beginning of the trial of strength. He found himself alone in this room, and loudly said that this must be a joke. Why was he here alone? He thought that teleportation before clearing doesn't happen. This is clearly an unusual dungeon. Suddenly, a small cube appeared next to him, and a strange monster began to crawl out of it. He looked at it and thought it was a hobgoblin, an average boss in E-rank cubes. E-rank raiders can at least somehow deal with them, but he has no rank at all. He was trembling with fear and thought that the hobgoblin would probably win. So this monster, this is his opponent? Another would have won easily, but he must hold out because he had already chosen his path. If he gave up now, he would not save Nagi. He only needed victory. The monster let out a loud cry and tried to attack him. He dodged and with a tense expression thought that with the power of one blow, it could simply crush him. He turned sharply, struck him in the stomach, and thought that, however, he had a predictable trajectory. He needed to calmly keep moving. He was quite predictable. Sato's taunting had done him good. Step by step, he had to get behind him and strike. He was about to strike, but at that moment, the monster let out a loud cry, causing him to lose his composure. The hobgoblin suddenly turned towards him and delivered a powerful blow to his stomach. He was badly hurt. He was thrown to the side. The intimidation skill had taken effect. The main character leaned on his sword with a shocked expression on his face and thought that this was bad. He couldn't breathe. He needs to get up right now. He raised his head and saw the monster running towards him with a loud scream. He held his sword in front of him and tried to block the blow, but he dropped the sword and it flew to the side. He was very worried about this, fell to the floor and looked at the hobgoblin in horror. He was very scared because of this situation and thought that it was useless. He would die. The monster calmly walked up to him, was about to bite his head, and thought that he was so worthless. A rankless nobody, a disgrace. He asks his sister for forgiveness. He won't be able to keep his promise. He remembered Nagi, gathered his strength, and delivered a strong blow to the monster's mouth. He thought that he can't give up. He needs to keep fighting. The monster screamed loudly in pain and fell to the ground. He got to his feet and asked loudly, "How does this taste? Does it taste good?" He was preparing for this move. "It burns, doesn't it?" He took out a small bottle and asked loudly, "Wasn't that enough? Then he should catch more." He threw the Dungeon Association artifact, black paint, and hit the monster's head, which also hit the hobgoblin's eye. He started running away, picked up another artifact, and threw it at the monster, pinning him hard to the ground. While the hobgoblin was immobilized, he took his sword and immediately ran towards it. He ran close enough and delivered a very strong blow with his weapon to the monster. The monster was defeated, and an unknown voice said that the first test, the test of strength, had been completed. Immediately after, he fell to the ground and started coughing up blood, and thought he had done it, but he had overdone it and was feeling a lot of pain. He can't move. Why is it getting so dark? He hears something, but he can't make it out. He was teleported back into the room, and Issei lifted his head and said loudly that he should hold on. He noticed that MC was okay, and said that he was very glad. He was safe now. It was all over. He loudly called Midori and said that she should heal his wounds. He thought that everything was really over. Her brother was strong. The girl began to heal his wounds with magic, and he stood next to her and said that he passed the first test. He asks for forgiveness, but what is his rank and who was his opponent? He said that he was unranked. He fought a hobgoblin. He looked at the vice captain and thought he was covered in wounds. Could such a man have been injured in a battle with a hobgoblin? He apologized, called him over, and asked who his opponent was. He turned to him and said that he had defeated a high-ranking ogre. He was very surprised by what he heard and thought that it was a high-ranking monster. Even A-rankers have a hard time against them. This couldn't be. He said that the opponents of everyone present. Issei agreed and said that each of them fought with the strongest in their combat category, as if they were being evaluated. Some did not return. They can only hope. At that moment, an unknown voice said that there were 15 survivors left. The test of strength was over. They were very surprised by what they heard, and remembered the people who had failed the test. The voice said that the second test, the test of erudition, had begun. They all remained together in this room, and it began to change before their eyes. They looked around the room and noticed an image of a palm, legs, an eye, and a torso on the floor. The adventurers said that these were some kind of pictures again. Is this some kind of quiz? Their attention was drawn to the bright light emanating from the fresco. They looked in that direction in surprise and said that the angel in the fresco had moved. Sato approached Kai, pushed him, called him trash, and said that he should get out of his way. He smiled, created magic in his hand, and said that the first blow was decisive. This angel must die. He attacked with his magic, but unexpectedly, his magic didn't leave even a scratch on this statue. The adventurers became worried about this, and Issei loudly said that they should all group together and hold the defense. The protagonist stood up, looked at this, and thought that magic wasn't working, that there were mysterious frescoes here, and this angel. How are they supposed to pass the test of erudition? Suddenly, he dropped his sword and thought that his hands weren't obeying him. Or rather, his hands weren't moving. He looked around and noticed that the others couldn't move their hands either. The angel approached one of the adventurers and put his sword to his throat. He looked at this statue in horror, and with one sharp blow, it cut off his head. The adventurers began to panic because of this, and Issei loudly said that they should calm down and move away from the angel. They ran in different directions, and suddenly MC fell to the ground with a surprised expression. He turned around and wondered what was going on here. His legs weren't moving. However, now he could feel his arms. How was that possible? The other adventurers grabbed their heads and loudly asked what was going on. He thought with a puzzled expression that he was lying down, but could move his arms. Issei was lying next to him and loudly said that they should run. The angel was approaching. They needed to keep their distance. Several adventurers complained in worried voices about not being able to see. He looked over to where they were standing and wondered. They couldn't see? There was a plate with an eye, and here with legs. Before there was a plate with arms. He began to guess, and Issei loudly said that the functionality of limbs depends on the plate they are on. The adventurers were very nervous because they couldn't see anything, and the angel was mercilessly killing them one by one. Sato ran out of the plate with his eyes and suddenly began to choke. Kai noticed this and wondered, did he end up on the plate with his torso? Had his organs really stopped working? He stretched out his hand to him and called for help with a very frightened look. He looked at him with a surprised expression and wondered what this idiot was even talking about. And why should he save him? He treated him like a dog and bullied him time and time again. This is karma. He has to survive to save his sister. However, he wants to ask her for forgiveness, because he simply can't. He started crawling towards him and thought that if he acts stupidly, he will never be able to look Nagi in the face. He must become a reliable older brother. He was able to get to his feet and immediately ran towards him. He started to choke and thought that he needs to get him out of there. He must take his hand. Unexpectedly for him, Sato used magic with a sly grin and pushed him aside. He looked at him with a smirk after that and thought that he would survive, unlike him. The protagonist fell to the ground next to the monster and wondered, did he push him towards the angel? He lost his sight and thought it was dark here. He couldn't see anything. He was now on the slab with the eye. He knew for sure that the angel was somewhere nearby. He felt a sword on his shoulder and wondered if they would really kill him. He began to panic and thought that he needed to run away from this damned test. Issei attacked the angel with magic and loudly said that this monster should look at him. He was surprised when he heard his voice, and the angel was initially distracted by him, but immediately turned back. He became worried about this and loudly called out his name, saying that he should run from there. He felt the sword on his shoulder again and thought that if he thought about it before the angel struck, it placed the blade on the shoulder. What could such a useless action mean? He needed to think of something urgently. A test of strength and battles with monsters. An angel and a test of erudition. They had to fight those who were stronger. A blade on the shoulder, a bow, a knight. If the murals are a clue, then this can't be true. Unexpectedly for the others, MC knelt before the angel, who held the blade of a sword on his shoulder. Because of this, the angel retreated from him, and everyone was surprised. He loudly said that they must adopt a stance of loyalty. This is the key to solving the test. The murals are a clue. The first is a test of strength, and the second is a test of erudition. It depicts a knight bowing to an angel in an oath of loyalty. It sounds strange, but it works. This position is difficult to maintain outside the eye area. They must be careful and crawl here. On the torso slab, breathing is blocked. They must first move to the palm slab. Sato was lying on the seal with his legs up, and an angel came to him and began to direct the sword toward his shoulders. He was very scared because of this, turned to him, screamed loudly, and attacked with magic. This raised a large cloud of dust, but the angel put a sword to his shoulder, which really scared him, and loudly said that he did not want to die. Why him? It must choose someone else, or they must help him. Useless freaks. No one could help him, and the angel killed him with a blow of his sword. Kai heard this, gritted his teeth and thought that he could not save him. He heard sounds nearby, and thought that the angel had passed by him several times already. This means that the others are already here too. He really hopes that they will survive. Their sight returned and a voice said that there were 6 survivors left. The second test, the test of erudition, was over. They all looked at the angel, who began to disappear, and a voice said that the final test would begin in 3 minutes. The military approached him and, in joyful voices, loudly said that he was good, that he had saved them. He didn't understand them, because they spoke English, and Issei said that they thanked him. He asked to be allowed to thank him too. Thanks to him, they survived this horror. However, he lowered his head and said that he was no good. He was supposed to lead this mission as a commander, but in the end, he lost many comrades. He failed as a leader. He stood nearby and loudly said that it was not true. He looked at him and said that if not for his help, he would have died. He was glad that he was with them now and was grateful to him. Later, the voice said that 3 minutes had passed. The beginning of the final test, the test of the soul, was announced. They must split into 2 teams and enter the door. The test for them is right behind these doors. One soldier said that then everything was decided. He would go with his guys. He would like to talk to this guy, but they spoke different languages and would not understand each other. Issei agreed and said that before they parted, he would like to know his name. The protagonist understood him and said his name. He said with a thoughtful look that he thought he had heard of him, but it turned out to be a mistake. What is his rank? He looked away with a slightly confused voice and said that he was unranked. The soldiers were very surprised and loudly asked, "He did all this while being unranked?" It seems he came because of the big reward. It was reckless. He stood next to him and said that he still saved them. It is important to understand that abilities are not the main thing. The girl put her hand on his shoulder and asked, however, did he not understand how dangerous this cube is? Then why did he do such a thing? He said that his sister has magical exhaustion syndrome. Yesterday, her condition worsened to stage 3. The treatment is very expensive. Everyone felt sorry for him and said that this disease is also very common in their homeland. He risked his life for his sister. It was a blow to his heart. One of the soldiers looked at the photo on his phone and said that he hadn't seen his family for a long time. So they must clear the dungeon and he will reward them. They should return to their countries and spend time with their families. That's what they want, right? One of the soldiers approached the girl and said that then he wants to spend this weekend with her. A sweet girl. Fate brought them together. What's her name? She took Issei's hand and said that her name was Tendo Midori. They are just engaged for now, but one day she will take his last name. He started crying because of this, and the soldiers approached Louis and said that he was rejected. He should try another time. Now he has more reasons to get out of here alive. They must remember to invite them to the wedding. MC thought that less than 10 minutes of their heated conversation had passed, and for the first time in a long time, he was able to laugh out loud. After that, they finished talking and went through 2 different doors, saying goodbye to each other. Issei walked ahead, used magic to illuminate the place and said that they should stay alert. He walked next to him, called out to him and said that there was something there. They came closer, saw a collar, and asked what it was. Suddenly, a light appeared in this place, and they saw that there were many huge monsters standing behind the bars. They looked at them and asked, "How many of them are there? Do they really have to kill them all? It's simply impossible. They won't be able to cope at all. Midori pointed her finger to the side, called his name and said that there was a door there. They need to run to it. Suddenly, a grate appeared in front of them in this corridor, preventing them from going further. They heard a voice that said that they must choose a victim. The chosen person will put on the collar, and the way will be clear for the others. They were all shocked by what they heard and said, that means one will die and two will survive. The voice said that they have 1,000 seconds left. Issei was indignant at this and asked loudly, is this a joke? What kind of monstrous test is this? How much longer can they play with them and mock them? He fell to his knees and Kai looked at the collar and thought that someone will definitely die here. And yet, they made an oath to meet there, outside. He can't. It's too cruel. He clenched his teeth and said that he doesn't want to die. Midori stood up, picked up a knife and walked towards him. She walked slowly towards him, but Issei noticed this, grabbed her hands and loudly asked what she was doing. She said loudly in a very nervous voice that he should stop. This is the only way. He threw the knife out of her hands, and she looked at him and started crying. He called her by name, and she said that she knew it was terrible. However, they had to choose at least someone, so she chose him. Even if he didn't forgive her, even if he hated her, she wants to be alive with him. He asked her for forgiveness and said that he forced her to choose. He would stay here and she should leave with him. She refused and said that this wasn't what she wanted. She couldn't leave without him. He hugged her and said that she had to understand him. As the vice captain of the guild, as her husband, he asked to let him protect her. She called him loudly and asked why everything had happened this way. He remembered the past, when he and Nagi were at his parents' funeral and he wondered why they had left. He hugged her and thought that losing someone he loved, he hated this feeling. They both didn't want to experience this either, just like he did they? They both turned to look at him and saw him put the collar on himself without permission. He turned to them with a smile, apologized and said that he thought he would be a hero for a while. Issei approached him and, looking very worried, loudly asked what he was doing. He should take it off immediately. The protagonist said that it was fine. He was unnecessary here anyway. He said loudly that that was not the point. His sister was waiting for him. He said that everything was exactly like that, so he wanted to ask him for something. His sister's name was Nagi. He said that he came here for the money for her treatment. However, this disease was incurable, and the money would run out sooner or later. He couldn't do something so dangerous anymore. So could he please keep an eye on her, okay? He apologized. It was probably too impudent a request, but he was asking him to use all his connections. He wanted to say something, but he looked away and thought about it very hard. He plucked up his courage and said that he understood everything. They would take care of his sister, and even completely cure her if necessary. He agreed and thanked him with a kind smile. They started walking down the hallway to the door, and Midori loudly apologized to him for all of this. He remained standing and thought that this was for the best. Nagi would have thought the same, right? A rankless nobody had gone so far. He thought it was even better this way. He was lucky. He met the vice captain of the guild. Could anything be cooler? He also promised to cure his sister. He himself wouldn't be able to keep his promise to apologize, but he would tell her about what happened. If only he could see her again, his beloved sister. I wonder if there is heaven or hell. He hopes that he will go to heaven. He sat down on the floor, covered his head with his hands, and thought that he was really going to die. He started crying and thought that he didn't want to die. He reached out his hand to them and thought that they shouldn't leave him. He was scared. Someone had to save him. Suddenly, a key fell in front of him, and the other adventurers were also chained up, which made them very worried. A voice said that the final test of the soul was now beginning. MC was very surprised by this, and thought that this couldn't be. So, this test was starting right now? The key could only unlock 2 chains. He had to choose wisely. He picked up the key and thought that the key was in his hands now. It could only free 2 people. Him and someone else, or both of them. In other words, now he could do with their lives as he wanted. With every thought that flashed through his head, with every short breath, he felt this growing darkness inside him more and more. It was disgusting, because his instincts were overpowering his decision. He didn't know what it was. What kind of voice was speaking inside him? A skeleton appeared next to him and said that he had to choose his salvation. No need to try to look cool. Why not use this key and escape alone? No one will know what he did and blame him. He covered his ears with his hands and said loudly that he should shut up. He wanted to save them both. The skeleton asked, "What is he talking about? If he wanted to, he would have saved them long ago. They wouldn't have gotten this far without his help. Then they should be the ones sacrificing themselves for him, right?" Kai said that Issei had promised that his sister was his. The skeleton asked if he was serious now. He would never see her again if he died, right? All he needs is money for his sister's treatment. Isn't that the perfect scenario? After all, he's sure they're going to keep their promise? He should think about it. They're strangers he's only known for a day. Do they really have a reason to keep their promise? No one will know what they talked about here, and few people would want to live with the ballast of a disabled person, so he should take care of her himself, right? He said that, however, they would do more for this world than a low-ranking nobody like him. The skeleton turned into Sato and said that he should stop humiliating himself. He had become much stronger. He was convinced of this when he tried to save him. Not everyone is capable of saving the one who bullied him all his life. That's all. He's already tried to save them, and this is his reward. He must be strong and not value someone else's life more than his own. Isn't that the essence of a test of the soul? The value of life? The strength of the soul? The protagonist said that perhaps he was right and his words were true. He said that then he knew. What should he do? He agreed, threw the key to Issei with all his might, called him and asked, "He will look after Nagi, right?" He was relying on him. Sato started to fade away, called him an idiot and asked, "What is he doing?" He was always like this, always going out of his way for others. He had always been like this, sacrificing honor, pride, well-being, everything. Even if he was a weakling, a useless and stupid idiot. He should stop playing the hero. It was driving him crazy. MC turned to him with a smile, agreed and asked, "He's cool, isn't he?" Before completely disappearing, he insulted him, and at that moment, a voice said that time was up. Now the monsters would be released. He picked up a knife and asked loudly, "How does that feel, God?" He probably wanted to see humans suffering. He was asking for forgiveness, but that wouldn't happen today because he would resist to the end. At that very moment, an angel appeared behind him and said that she had finally found it, the purest soul worthy of golden eyes. The protagonist looked around in surprise. Where was he? Darkness was everywhere. The last thing he remembered was being on the brink of death at the hands of monsters. And then suddenly, an angel appeared. "So, this is heaven?" At that moment, a system voice rang out, informing him that he had successfully passed the trial of the soul. The protagonist thought in confusion. A trial of the soul? Was he still inside the cube? The voice announced the tournament standings again. The survivors were Tanaka Issei and Tendo Midori. The eliminated were Alfred Terrell, Louis Raleigh, and Kyo Brutus. MC simply gasped. The eliminated? Did they really die? The voice then announced that the test subject Kai, who cleared the cube, would be transported to the divine chamber. In addition, the knight's orb and the eye of the god would be bestowed upon him. Very quickly, the protagonist realized that someone was here. He drew his blade and prepared for a possible attack. Suddenly, part of the room was illuminated by a bright light, and the protagonist saw a skeleton dressed in white robes on the throne. MC exclaimed in surprise. What was this? He knew the skeleton wasn't made of human remains. After all, the skeleton had wings, and it sat proudly on that throne. On the wall behind the throne, Kai saw some hieroglyphs. He was surprised. It was the first time he'd seen them, but could he read them? Narrowing his eyes, he began to read what was written there. The first line read, "They have shamefully lost." He continued reading, "The defeat of the Light Ones is approaching. Even their bodies will be captured. The entire world is at risk of enslavement. Soon, everything will be in their hands. Let them place everything on their shoulders." The princess used forbidden magic, sacrificing them, the holy knights. Next came a plea for forgiveness from the children of the future. He read two more phrases. "May the power of the god's eye be bestowed upon the faithful and worthy, and may his bright soul rid this wretched world of criminals." Suddenly surprised, Kai saw the pyramid with the engraved eye and the choker. He wondered if it would be okay if he touched it. Maybe it was some kind of lever to get out of here. He looked carefully at the things, at the skeleton, and hoped it wasn't a trap. Reaching out carefully, the protagonist took the choker and read the inscription Lancelot on it. For some reason, without even thinking, he snapped it around his neck and said, "That's the name of the knight from Arthurian legend." Suddenly, it dawned on him. Why had he put it on? What if he was under the influence? His hands reached out of their own accord. What horror! Suddenly out of nowhere, a knight in armor appeared before him, standing in front of him, shielding him. Monsters appeared out of nowhere, and the knight quickly dispatched them. The protagonist was perplexed. Who are they? It's the Knight of Light. Enemies suddenly appeared again, and Lancelot engaged them in combat. His movements were precise and skillful. The ringing of his sword hung in the air, vibrating. At that moment, the protagonist saw the princess, crouched on the ground, dodging enemy attacks. The knight asked her if she was okay. The protagonist was dumbfounded. Were these someone else's memories? The princess began to apologize to Lancelot. He had become her knight, which meant he was doomed to this. The knight heatedly retorted, "Please, don't let her say that. He was a nobody, and she had saved him. His life belonged only to her and no one else." MC, watching what was happening, realized that someone else's memories had filled his head. The brave knight Lancelot had saved a certain princess countless times, and in this chaotic replay of events, he couldn't tear his eyes away from it. After a while, the princess handed the knight a shining object and thanked her hero. The protagonist was surprised to recognize the gift as a cube. Suddenly, Lancelot turned to him and said, "Finally, it's here." The day had come when his honor, knowledge, and power would pass to another knight. Presumably, he entrusted this world to him, the knight of this time. Then everything disappeared, and the protagonist felt his cheeks wet. Touching his hand, he noticed in bewilderment tears. Wiping his eyes, he wondered if this was a memory. It was as if someone had touched his heart. The skeleton still sat motionless on the throne. Kai understood little of all this. However, one thing was crystal clear. Perhaps this was the past of the universe? He picked up the cube and noticed a certain secret about the cubes, and all of this had been entrusted to him by the Bright Knight. And this relic was now his too. A voice suddenly appeared, giving the command to activate, informing the protagonist that the God's Eye skill was being transferred. A very bright light began to emit from the cube, and MC noted that his body was moving by inertia. The system began the activation countdown, and then his consciousness faded. Suddenly, the skeleton also lit up, and in its place appeared an angel, the very one who saved the protagonist, helping activate the god's eye. And this divinely bestowed skill painted the protagonist's world with new colors. When he woke up, he found himself in a spacious room, illuminated by bright rays of sunlight. The protagonist wondered where he was. Looking around, he was surprised. Was he really home? Was this all a dream? He walked through the door. Something got in his eye, and then what? His eyelids were drooping. So Kai decided to take a shower. When he approached the mirror, his amazement knew no bounds. A choker adorned his neck. In utter surprise, he activated his status and, perplexed, said, "His name is Kai, and his condition is normal." Next came his mana, along with some stats. His mana level was 5, attack conversion rate was 25%, defense conversion rate was also 25%, and agility and intelligence also showed a 25% conversion rate. His skill was level 1 God's Eye. The protagonist exclaimed in surprise, "This can't be true. What, his stats?" The system voice informed him that the transfer of the God's Eye skill had been successfully completed. He thought in confusion. So this wasn't a dream? The state of shock was replaced by delight. He joyfully exclaimed, he did it. He finally got his first skill. It's certainly not an offensive tool, but if used correctly, it can become an excellent support. He won't let anyone down again. The protagonist called his sister's name and said that her brother had acquired a skill. MC looked out the window and suddenly thought, yeah. How could he have forgotten that? Nagi's condition was getting worse. The protagonist ran out into the street and ran as fast as he could. Passers-by looked at him in surprise, but the protagonist didn't notice anyone. He ran and thought, the golden cube, the trials, this is all real. It's happening. The 10 million for his sister's treatment will be his. MC didn't even realize how quickly he found himself at the hospital, where he was met by a surprised doctor and nurse. They stared at him in amazement. Kai, wiping away the sweat that had broken out, greeted the doctor and exclaimed, he did it. He has the money for treatment. Let him start treating his sister right now. The doctor, dumbfounded, tried to calm him down, but the protagonist continued. They had to hurry. They didn't have much time left. Let him hospitalize her as soon as possible. If possible, right now. The doctor had to raise his voice for him to hear him, and he almost shouted his name. When the protagonist fell silent, the doctor asked him, he's Kai, right? He answered, the man, perplexed. Yes. But what happened? The doctor turned on the news, which reported that new details had emerged about the Golden Cube. Last month, Tanaka Ise returned from the Golden Year. Only 2 survivors. It's a disaster. The government is under pressure to bring the vice captain of the Avalon Guilds to justice. The protagonist thought in bewilderment, last month, only 2 survivors? He looked at the doctor, and a realization struck him. MC said, just don't let the doctor tell him that he, Kai, is listed as deceased. The doctor scratched his head in confusion, and the nurse's expression was as if she'd seen a corpse come to life. Sometime later, Kai and the doctor were riding in a car. The man told him Nagi had already been transferred to another hospital. Her current guardian was the vice captain of the Avalon Guild, Tanaka Ise. The astonished protagonist listened silently. The doctor continued. Tanaka had returned from the cube and immediately came to him to petition for Nagi's transfer. At first he was surprised, not knowing they were somehow acquainted. The protagonist thought grimly. He had sworn an oath. The doctor continued. This is what he told him. He is Nagi's attending physician, so she remains under his care. Lately, he has been constantly traveling between his hospital and the new facility where the girl is being treated. This institution specializes in this treatment. It is the best hospital for those suffering from this affliction. When they arrived, the doctor led him to his sister's room, where she was lying under an oxygen mask, and told him he could relax. She was fine now. The protagonist rested his forehead against the cool glass wall separating him from Nagi, his heart clenching with pain and compassion. His sister, so small compared to the big bed she was lying on, with sensors and machines everywhere, and artificial respiration, the mask of which covered almost her entire face. He couldn't help but let tears well up in his eyes, and he thanked God for her life. The doctor finally told him to go see Tanaka. He needed to know that Kai had survived. After leaving the hospital, the protagonist did just that, arriving at the largest and most influential guild in his country, Avalon. The protagonist was simply amazed by its size and the building itself. He'd seen this building on TV a couple of times, but in real life, it was much bigger. This building was simply enormous. Inside, at the reception desk, he was greeted by a nice girl who said, welcome. How could she help him? The protagonist greeted her and said he'd like to see Tanaka. The receptionist was surprised. He was talking about their vice captain. The protagonist, distracted by the other adventurers, suddenly remembered what he was doing and told her, yes, that's right. She asked for his name and identification number. While she checked the information, she asked him to wait a minute. A short time later, she said, that's correct. The vice captain will be arriving soon. He could sit down and wait for him. At that moment, Tanaka, like a hurricane, jumped into the room from the second floor and began shouting the protagonist's name at the top of his lungs. Everyone stared at him in amazement. The vice captain ran to the protagonist and fell at his feet, still repeating his name. MC sheepishly told him, yes, he's alive. He's alive, and his legs are still there. At that moment, Tendo appeared and tearfully told the protagonist, he's alive. After a while, when the emotions had subsided, the allies went to Nagi's room. The boy told him, I understand. Then, his choice in the final trial had been wrong. The protagonist noted that this was true. He wanted to continue his story, but something caught in his throat, and he gasped in surprise. Tanaka, perplexed, asked him if something was wrong. The MC wriggled out of the situation and told him everything was fine. He wanted to tell him that he woke up and realized he was home. In his mind, he wondered in surprise what had just happened. He wanted to tell his friend about the divine chamber, but he couldn't. Was it because of the choker? When they approached the glass wall, Tanaka looked at the girl and said gloomily, to no avail. But Kai shouldn't worry about his sister. They'll look after her. The protagonist asked him if he was sure. The guy answered, of course. This was a very important promise he made, and he wouldn't break it. The protagonist noticed, but he was back and didn't want to bother him with this anymore. The vice captain placed his hand on his shoulder and said, he knows he, Kai, works hard for Nagi, but he no longer has to bear this burden alone. He can rely on them, his comrades. The protagonist looked at him with amazement and gratitude, bowed low, and asked him to take care of his sister. The guy said yes, let him leave her to them. At that moment, the protagonist's stomach growled loudly, and he clutched his stomach with his hand. Tanaka asked him if they could have lunch together. The MC agreed, saying, that would be nice. A while later, Kai, walking down the street and looking at his checkbook, thought about grabbing a bite with Tanaka, but it seemed he had no time. The protagonist was surrounded by reporters eager to know more about the golden cube, but he wasn't prepared for that, so the vice captain took over the omnipresent workers. MC decided to grab a bite to eat somewhere alone. Tanaka volunteered to handle Nagi's treatment. The protagonist received his reward, and now, looking at the receipts, he thought 10 million at his disposal. This was the first time he'd held so much money in his hands. When he'd first received his reward, it was as if his being had split in two. One half rejoiced, there wouldn't be another chance like this. He definitely splurged today. The other half, using its sanctity, objected. No, this money is for Nagi. He shouldn't spend it mindlessly. A bird pecks grain by grain, but it's full. The first half resisted. What bird? Food is everything. You can't skimp on it. Before a long adventure, you need to fortify yourself well. It's the foundation of foundations. The protagonist supported the first half. He was right. He'd rather spend the money and eat properly. The holy half was shocked. The dark side rejoiced, but that was a different matter. What was on the menu? Matsusaka steak, foie gras, or caviar? When the protagonist ordered his meal, his dish was brought. The holy side said, a bowl of cold meats. The dark side was indignant. Wasn't this what he already ate every day? Where was the intended luxury? Kai sighed and noted that he usually ordered a medium portion, but this one was very large. He moved on, adding an egg and some pickles on top. Both sides remarked unanimously, they need to keep an eye on this kid. The protagonist thanked the waiter and began eating. From that moment on, he slowly learned to use his golden eye. He could see various stats of those around him, such as mana levels, names, jobs, and so on. Or for example, awakened beings or equipment made from magic stones and monsters. But the skill didn't work on ordinary things, like canned food or herbs. Right now, for example, he couldn't see the stats of this bowl of food. His skill also reacts to mirrors, but not to televisions or photographs. When he activates the skill, he sees the stats of everything in his field of vision. If he stares long enough, they become more detailed. An adventurer appeared in front of him, approached the counter, and ordered a bowl of meat. He felt someone staring at him. Meanwhile, the protagonist, looking at him, was analyzing, wow, the stats of this guy's sword. When he set the weapon down, the stats changed. Mana was 4,000, attack 600, defense 500, dexterity 500, and intelligence 40. He thought, so the sword stats change significantly when it's in the hands of its owner. At that moment, Kai overheard a group of adventurers talking. The first asked the second, by the way, what he thought of the Avalon Guild's vice captain. The second replied, well, they all know the information about clearing the cube is classified, right? Only 2 survivors, but they didn't even bring back any magic stones or anything, and one of them, for some reason, is the guild's vice captain. They couldn't even explain why the golden cube had vanished. The protagonist reacted with surprise to the adventurer's last words. He even got up from the table. The golden cube had vanished? The adventurers looked at him in bewilderment, their expressions clearly asking, who the hell is that? Sometime later, the protagonist emerged at Shibuya Station and saw a small, impromptu rally at the cube's site. Several people were there, laying flowers, drinks, and candles. He thought dejectedly, it's true, the golden cube has disappeared. As he approached the place, he saw 2 women. The older woman began to cry and asked, why is this happening? I wish he would come back. She must have been referring to her deceased loved one. The young woman, with compassion on her face, patted the woman on the shoulder. Kai recalled all his allies and thought, they're all gone without a trace. The only things left were the god's eye and the choker. What was that? Why did this cube even appear? What for? Stopping near the entrance to the dungeon, he noted, and the memories he'd seen in the divine chamber, there was something important about cubes. Afterwards, he approached the entrance to the dungeon, but was stopped by a guard who told him that only authorized personnel were permitted beyond this point. Kai looked over his shoulder and was greatly surprised by what he saw.